Welcome in, everybody. This is your self-care staffing for Monday, March 23rd, 2020. I'm Lou Pascal. I'm the school social worker with Manchester City Schools in Manchester, Tennessee. I'm working on using YouTube Live so that this can be more of a dialogue. So when I ask the self-care check-in question, y'all can respond and we can talk about it. I did the first video on Facebook Live and I liked that and I thought it went well, but when I went to download my video later, I couldn't figure it out. So that's why I moved to YouTube. But I would like to be able to do this live at some point while I'm doing this series of videos. So when I did the first video, I talked about planning as something that was saving my life at the moment. And I also mentioned perfectionism and overthinking, and I would normally identify myself as a perfectionist and an overthinker. But I really want to put these videos together and get them to you all quickly to hopefully provide some benefit and sense of relief as we're going through this time. And if I overthink it for weeks and weeks and weeks, the moment's going to pass and it's not going to help anybody. So when I did the first video, I talked to my mom and she suggested that I do some discussion of distinguishing overthinking from planning. So let's talk about overthinking. So these are just my thoughts, y'all. But to me, overthinking, number one, is paralyzing. So you can think and think and think and think, but you can't bring yourself to take any action. And the second thing is that, in my experience, it's an inescapable cycle of thoughts. So you just go around the same path over and over and over again. And when I'm in that moment, I can think of lots of options, but I can tell you what's wrong with every single one of them. So I can't bring myself to take action because something's wrong with every single choice I can think of. And so I can't take an action. I can't make a choice because I can't think of any that don't have negative ramifications of some sort. I also find that when I'm overthinking, I know that everybody else must be sick of hearing me talk about it, because I'm sick of hearing me talk about it, but I cannot stop myself. Cannot. My particular strain of overthinking I call bag lady syndrome. So here's how that works. So I'm thinking about a particular choice and I'm thinking I'm going to make a mistake, and that's going to lead to a series of events that means that I run out of money and I don't have children that are going to take care of me, and I have had family members that had Alzheimer's, and so I'm going to get Alzheimer's and I'm going to be elderly and I'm going to be in the street with no money and homeless and nothing to eat. So we go from a relatively small choice decision to 77 years old, homeless, nothing to eat, and it happens like that. Now, have people become elderly and homeless with nothing to eat in history? Yes, they have. That's a real thing. However, my reality at this moment is I've never missed a meal. I've never been homeless. So it's quite a progression to think that that would eventually be my reality at this point with what I know today. Okay? So that's all happens very, very quickly. And that is an example of how I overthink things. So I started making these videos because of coronavirus, COVID-19. Schools are closed. Churches are not meeting in person. We're supposed to be in gatherings of 10 or less. We're doing social distancing. Restaurants are not having dine-in. You have to carry out or you have to have it delivered. We're doing so many things in our lives these days that are so different from anything we've ever done because we're trying to minimize the impact of this virus. And people are saying these are unprecedented times, and I agree with that. I think that's true. And it can be very anxiety provoking. So here's my big thought for the day. Stay calm. You cannot see all of your options if you are in a panic or a hysteria. Or you may take a perfectly livable option and discard it because you're thinking of all the different ways it can go wrong. And during this time, y'all, there's just some things we're not going to know. We can't know today what all's going to go on. And it's very uncertain and it's very anxiety provoking. But we can't know when we're going to go back to school today. We can't know what all the economic impact of this is going to be today. We can't know. So that can lead to a lot of overthinking and a lot of panic and a lot of hysteria. And I'm hoping that we can find ways to calm ourselves. So, there are times, well, let me back up. So we want to stay out of our lizard, reptile, primitive downstairs brain. We want to be in our mammalian upstairs brain. I think we're going to spend a lot of time this week talking about thoughts. And that's one of the things I think we're going to talk about is downstairs brain versus upstairs brain, reptilian brain versus mammalian brain. There are times when fight, flight, or freeze is useful, and there are times when it is not. So that's the big thought for the day, is to stay calm. So how can we do that? How can we combat overthinking? I wrote several different things down, and the first one is awareness. So I'm a social worker, so we're going to talk about feelings. So ask yourself, what am I feeling? That's going to be the self-care check-in question for today. What am I feeling? And we can start with some common feelings: happy, sad, scared, angry. Are you feeling any of those? And for myself, I can tell you a lot of times I default to mad, but when I really think about it, I might be either sad or afraid. Okay, so I might be sad, but I just don't want to feel sad, so I make it mad instead. Well, that person shouldn't have done that, and how dare they, and all that about mad, instead of just feeling sad about what is going on. Okay, or afraid. I'm afraid of something that's going to happen, and so I make it somebody else's fault. And it might be somebody else's fault, and I'll be mad at them. Or it might not be somebody else's fault, and I'm placing blame on them that is unwarranted. Okay? So, how does that feel in your body? Once you know how you're feeling, how does that feel in your body? Are your fists clenched? Is your neck tight? You have tension there? Is your face hot? How does it feel in your body? What is the manifestation in your body of how that feels? Do you have heart palpitations? Are you short of breath? How does that feel in your body? And is there something I can be doing to be physically more comfortable? I've heard people say over the years something called HALT. So don't ever let yourself get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Don't ever let yourself get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And one of the first things I want to share with y'all today is there's a lady named Gretchen Rubin, and she has a podcast. It's called the Happier Podcast. And that's a lot of what this is about, y'all, is small ways that we can just be a smidgen happier. But you'd be surprised how something small can make such a big impact on your life. So she has this podcast, and she has a try this at home segment in every podcast. And she made a list a while back of all the podcasts and all the try it at home tips. And so I had seen that a while back. And so now that we have a lot of time on our hands, I'm thinking I'm going to go through there and listen to some of these and see if there's anything that I want to implement. So she made a handout of, and I think there's like over 200 podcasts at this point. So I'm going to try to find the link to this handout where she lists all of the try this at home tips from the podcast. And so the first one that I listened to and found very valuable was episode 7, where she says, treat yourself like a toddler, a cranky toddler. Now, I don't have kids, but I've been around kids quite a bit, infants, toddlers, and many of you all have children. And I just want you to think about how much time you spend keeping those children comfortable, making sure that they're not hungry, making sure their diaper's been changed, making sure they don't need a nap, making sure there's not some sort of physical illness going on that's making them feel bad. Okay? So treat yourself like a cranky toddler. So here's some questions. Are you too hot or too cold? Is your body physically too hot or too cold? Do you think you're too busy to go to the bathroom? You're not. I'm just going to tell you. When you feel that sensation, you need to go take care of it. You will be much happier. Are you hangry? How much conflict could be avoided in our world if people would just be sure they're not hungry? Okay? Have you not had enough water? I can't tell you how many times I know good and well that I'm thirsty and I need water and I don't drink it. And I can tell you, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. But I can tell you, dehydration happens long before you think it does. If you're thirsty, you're probably in an early stage of dehydration. And if you've ever been around an elderly person who's been dehydrated, that can have serious results. I mean, loss of rational thinking if you're an elderly person that's been dehydrated. Okay? So just think about that. Do you need to drink some water? I saw this video years ago about this woman that had lived into her 90s. And I can't remember what the second tip was, but she gave a couple tips about how she had managed to live into her 90s. And that was one thing. She said, drink your water. So y'all, drink your water. And then I think we're going to talk a lot about mindfulness in the coming videos. And I'm not a mindfulness teacher. I'm not a mindfulness expert, but again, my friend Kathy Crooks, that is a mindfulness teacher, when we've talked about this, she has said, mindfulness is being present in the moment. So you're not upset about what's gone on in the past. You're not fearful of what's happening in the future. You are in this moment. So what is happening today? What is happening right now? So ask yourself, what is happening right now? And what can you do about it? What is your next right thing? Not, how am I going to prevent something that's 5 years down the road? But what can I do today to take care of myself? What can I do today to move the ball forward on things that I want to do with my life? What can I do today? So my next recommendation is to talk to someone. I'm a social worker. I'm always going to have that recommendation in my repertoire. Can you talk to someone? Should you talk to someone about things that you're thinking and feeling? So we talked about your EAP, your Employee Assistance Program. We've talked about crisis lines. And y'all, I know there's a big stigma around this, but let me be the one to give you permission to talk to someone, to reach out and talk to someone, whether that's a friend, whether that's a family member. If you need to talk to someone, please do that. Please don't wait until you're suicidal to call a crisis line. You can call them whether you feel that or not. If you are in distress, especially that disaster distress line that I shared with y'all in the first video, it's the National Disaster Distress Line. And if you are feeling distress over any disaster, you can call them and they will give you immediate crisis counseling. Okay. Let's talk about our own self-talk from someone who is one of those people that always has an internal dialogue going on. Always. Let's talk about your self-talk. I know, affirmations can be too woo-woo for people, but let me say this to you. You are affirming something either way. If you have self-talk, you are affirming something every day. Either negative affirmation or positive affirmation. Okay. So when I think of affirmations, I think of something my brother says all the time that he's fond of saying, let not your heart be troubled. Okay. So sometimes when I'm in it up to my neck, I just think, let not your heart be troubled. Another one that I think of is make a deal and don't look back. That's one that I say to myself a lot. So if I've made a choice and I'm starting to second guess myself, I'll just tell myself, make a deal, don't look back. You made a deal. You made a choice. You did the best you could with the information that you had at the moment. Don't look back. The next one is journaling. I cannot tell y'all how much sometimes it will help if you'll just write it down and get it out. Whether that means you have to write 3 pages of a rant. There's just something about writing it down, and that, I don't know if it's the kinesthetic part of using your hand and it somehow gets it out of your body. I don't know. But journaling can help you. Here's another woo-woo suggestion for the day. This is a book that I've read a couple of times and I find really, really beneficial. And it's called Make Miracles in 40 Days. Make Miracles in 40 Days. It's by Melody Beatty. And I'll try to, I think I can give you guys a Library of Congress link for that. And it's a lot about gratitude, but it's not your typical gratitude list. It is really expressing gratitude for things that you would typically think of as bad. And even, you don't even have to really feel grateful if you can just bring yourself to say, I'm grateful for. And it's okay if there's some things that you can never bring yourself to say you're grateful for. So if there's been a death in your family, or just something that that it just feels wrong to say you're grateful for that, you don't have to do that. So just think about that book, Make Miracles in 40 Days. I find it very helpful. The next one that I want to talk about is distracting yourself, or what I would call curating your stimulus. I had one quote, and there's another one that I've since thought of, and I don't know who said it. I'm not gonna, maybe I can look it up and put it for you in the comments. But the one quote I was thinking of is, the news is a list of disasters. And that's Louise Hay that said that. The news is a list of disasters. I definitely know people these days that are not watching the evening news like they used to. And if that's what you need to do to take care of yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that you can kind of dip in for a minute every day and kind of get the gist, and you don't have to expose yourself to that all day every day if it's terrifying you. And that's the next quote, is don't scare yourself. Like, don't allow your thoughts to terrify yourself. I'm going to look that up. That is definitely a quote. I'm going to look it up and share it with y'all. Don't scare yourself to death. So, I know social media break has been a thing we've talked about, and it's been a thing in our consciousness ever since social media has become a big thing. Even if you don't want to take a social media break, like complete cold turkey, even if you don't want to do that, sometimes what I think about is like, how could I scroll less? I'd like to scroll less today. So here's some suggestions for scrolling less. Of course, I told you guys I'm a lifelong learner, love books. So read a book is going to be the first one on the list. It could be a Kindle book. It could be a physical book. It could be a book on your phone. It could be a audiobook that you listen to while you're in the car, or while you're doing the laundry, or while you're washing the dishes. A book might be beneficial to you. You might enjoy a book right now. Watch a documentary about one of your interests. Don't watch one of those end of the world documentaries about peak oil or something like that. Watch a documentary that is going to be uplifting about something you're interested in. So I'll give you an example. For social workers, there is a new documentary out about Frances Perkins. And if you don't know, Frances Perkins was a pioneer in social work, and she was the first female Secretary of Labor, I think perhaps the first female cabinet position ever. And she worked for President Franklin Roosevelt. And it's a new documentary just about her. It's only an hour long. It's called Summoned. And I think it's streaming on some public television right now. It came out in March. But I wasn't able to find it to stream, so I just rented it online to watch. But it's Summoned by Frances Perkins, and I think there's a trailer, and I will share that in the comments. Find a way to be in contact with your people. I know that a lot of houses of worship are not meeting in person, but so many of them are putting their services online, y'all. So if that would help you, find one of them and watch it. Do a puzzle or play a game. Exercise. Do you know exercise is one of the most recommended interventions for depression? Helps you with endorphins. It helps your brain chemistry. So think about some exercise. I'm not a doctor. If you're not supposed to be exercising, if you've got some physical complications, talk to your doctor first. But exercise might be beneficial for you. Get yourself outside. I'm not super outdoorsy, and I'm not 100% confident about my ability to grow plants all the time. I've killed a lot of plants, y'all. But right now, I have some outside plants. I have my grandmother's buttercups out by my mailbox, and I have my mom and my grandmother's irises up by my front door. And so sometimes I'll just go outside and I'll just say I'm going to check my crops. And so the other day, when I was having such a bad day, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was already feeling like I was ready to go back to bed and try again the next day, I went outside, and that day just happened to be the day that my buttercup one of my buttercups had bloomed. They've been coming up since January, and that was the day it bloomed. So maybe you should get yourself outside and check your crops. So again, the self-care check-in is, what are you feeling? So think about that for yourself for a moment. What are you feeling? And I'm about to wrap it up. So a couple more things I want to share with you today. We're going to go hip hop a little bit with our laughter recommendation and our music recommendation. So I wasn't really sure what to share with y'all today in terms of laughter, but then I went back in my files in my YouTube of things that I had liked, and there's a video, and it is Mr. Rogers remixed. So they take some of the things that Mr. Rogers said, some segments from Mr. Rogers over the years, and they remix it into like a hip hop rap song. It's really cool. It's great. And bonus, he talks about the garden of your mind. So there's things about lifelong learning in the Mr. Rogers remix. So it's delightful. You'll enjoy it. I'm going to post it in the comments. And then the other thing for music is go to YouTube and search lo-fi hip hop. So L-O-F-I hip hop. And that's a really good one for if you're trying to get something done. When I'm trying to get something done, like something I'm having to think about, write a letter, write a memo, write a report, I can't have a bunch of words. I can't have somebody singing. I just can't tune that out. Y'all might be able to. I can't. So I do lo-fi hip hop, and it's instrumental hip hop. And some of them are like an hour, and some of them are live, and they just go and go and go and go. So I'm going to post a link to that too in the comments. And if you guys can think of anything you want me to be talking about, please post that in the comments also, and I'll try to address it. And I think that's all we've got for today. So again, I'm going to try to do these every day that we're closed. And I think my schools particularly are closed at least for 3 more weeks. So this week and 2 more. So I'm going to try to do a video on every weekday while we're closed. So let me know if there's things you want me to discuss. But other than that, if all hearts and minds are clear, then I will see you tomorrow. You guys take care.